Warning, we are not your attorneys. Please, don't take anything we say as legal advice. I'm Geoff.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Derrick.
And you are listening to the Not So Grand Jury,
which is still sponsored by More Law PLLC. Hi, everybody. Editor Derrick here. Same Derrick as your host, except I'm currently in editing mode. We are bringing you today a sidebar mostly regarding poker scenes in movie and TV shows, with a focus on the poker scene from our episode. It was episode 8, season 2, and we discussed a Star Trek The Next Generation poker scene. It was a 3-minute poker scene that we somehow discussed for 20 minutes. That was alongside Wes Rist, one of our guests, and Geoff and I were there as well. So we're going to be bringing you a quick sidebar where essentially I get annoyed that people don't know how to play poker in movies and TV shows, and then we play to you a section of that episode that was cut from the final edit. So hopefully you enjoy that. I also wanted to note that next week's episode will be a discussion of the animated movie Zootopia, where we are going to discuss, among other things, treatment of police officers, power of police unions, warrants, and involuntary confinement. So hopefully you can watch or rewatch that movie before we release it next Thursday. Please enjoy. Listen, I love poker. I enjoy playing poker games, especially home games, where people know what they're doing. The two of the poker scenes that we have seen in during the run of our podcast, the first being one of our early episodes, Lincoln Lawyer, where Mickey goes to find his jury consultant, and they demonstrate how good she is at reading people by allowing her to effectively flop a straight flush and then take everyone's money because they all have very good hands and her hand is better, which is, really indicative of whether you can read people or not, is if you just get handed the best hand in poker and then move on. Then the more recent one, Star Trek The Next Generation, has an entire poker scene. We took it out of the episode because, one, it was already like 2 hours long, and we're not sure if you wanted to hear us talk about Star Trek The Next Generation for that long. We also talked about it for like 20 minutes, which is honestly impressive in some ways. So we're going to drop in that clip so that you can hear Derrick complain about poker, about bad things that happen in the poker scene. I also just want to say that I'm sure there's going to be other scenes that we are going to do in movies in the future, and I'm not going to hold back on how dumb they are as well. I just want to throw it out there to the writers of movies, to the directors, to the editors. Could you spend a couple goddamn seconds and try to make poker scenes not the dumbest things of all time? The concept of saying call and raise you is not a thing anymore. That may have been a thing 40 years ago. That's not in the lexicon anymore. That is called a string bet. You cannot do that. Having the concept of people reading other people, which is a thing in poker, really only works if it's a bluff or if they call someone out for clearly not having anything. It doesn't work when the person who is doing the reading, quote unquote, has a huge hand and would have done it either way. Somebody needs consultants on these movies who understand poker. I am available. I will give you a nice hourly rate. I will make it not suck.
I'm going to add one tiny defense to them, and that it has to be, you have to show that a realistic hand happens, but also it has to be easily readable for the audience who might not know poker.
I get that. Geoff has his hand raised. I will allow Geoff to talk about, and we can then go back to an answer to that.
Well, no, I am actually going to follow up on what Mike said, which is that in a way, the challenge of writers and directors depicting a poker scene is very much similar to the challenge for writers and directors depicting legal scenes. And that is that in actuality, while they are emotionally tense and stressful, they are also long and boring to watch from the outside. For most people. I mean, people watch, World Series of Poker and whatnot, but for the most part, a poker game that you're not participating in is long and boring. And so they have to do some condensing. However, I agree with you on your main point, Derrick, that the way they do it is still wrong. They could get the words right.
Right. They could at least get the lexicon right.
Yeah. And maybe you've got, trip tens instead of a, straight flush.
Right. Well, and I think it's actually relatively easy for the audience to understand if you call out someone who's bluffing, right? Haul them down with something when you actually have a relatively bland hand is honestly still something you could understand as a generic listener who's not a poker person. Although you have just now realized that we are going to need to do rounders on this show because it is both it is a basically poker movie that also involves a law student as part of it. So,
isn't there a poker movie with Jodie Foster? It's like a Western.
I got nothing.
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
Maybe
it's ringing a bell.
Maybe, but rounders is what came to mind because Maverick. Also they do a very. I don't think I've watched Maverick.
I haven't either.
And I'm assuming you're not referring to and now you're not referring to Top Gun Maverick. You were referring to just Maverick.
I'm referring to just Maverick. I hope I'm getting that right.
Not referring to John McCain.
Correct.
And we've devolved as per always.
I don't think we could devolve from where we were, but okay.
This whole thing is one big devolvement. Anyway, enjoy this conversation regarding the barely 3-minute poker scene in Star Trek The Next Generation where we talk about it for 20 minutes. I'm happy to jump in to be like, from what I can tell, and I would like you guys to correct me if I'm wrong, the whole purpose of the poker game is for... Now, we can talk about how that 3-minute poker game gave me just at least 30 minutes of conversation that I'm going to choose not to get into on this podcast.
As two guys who have sat at the table and played poker with you, we thought you'd have feelings.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, not shockingly, Wes, who, as he typically does, made notes on this episode. He had about 8 notes from this poker game. What's funny is I have notes that do not overlap one bit with Wes's notes, which indicate we all have issues with this poker game in many different ways. But as I can tell, and Geoff, feel free to do the clip, and then I'll talk about it if you have the clip.
You had nothing. He bluffed you, Data. It makes very little sense to bet when you cannot win.
But I did win. I was betting on you wouldn't call.
How could you tell?
Instinct, Data. Instinct.
And let's just pause to acknowledge the travesty that is the Pulaski character and move on. Oh. Derrick, for the listener, so Pulaski was introduced out of nowhere at the beginning of season 2, replacing a character the fans like, Dr. Crusher, who returns in season 3 because no one liked Dr. Pulaski.
So I was going to ask, because I was looking up who's in the episode, and I noticed that Wesley Crusher is listed but does not appear. So he's just written out.
No, he is. He's on the bridge, and he actually has a line.
Okay, he has one line.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering because
the retcon of this is his mom's off doing research or something somewhere. I forget what it is, but like Gates McFadden, who played her character, needed a break or wanted off or something, wasn't convinced that it was going to go well. And let's also be frank. The first season was not great. Like the writing on the first season struggled. I do not recommend people start with season 1 if you're watching Star Trek The Next Generation for the first time.
I think fully half of the first season is leftover scripts from the 60s that they didn't get around to shooting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going great.
It is widely acknowledged that the second half of season 2 is where Star Trek The Next Generation really hits its kind of curve, and it's solidly up for 6 seasons.
Well, we're here to talk about poker. So
yes, please, Derrick.
So I guess let's first talk about the point of the poker game, which my understanding of it is to have the 30-second conversation between Data and Maddox, where he basically says, I learned everything there is to know about poker, but I sat down and it was completely different.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have that clip too.
Yes. I had read and absorbed every treatise and textbook on the subject and found myself well prepared for the experience. Yet, when I finally played poker, I discovered that the reality bore little resemblance to the rules.
Which, by the way, also describes law school. Just
Fair enough.
Which, if he did read, did he not read a book on bluffing?
That was my first point. So my first point is, if he indeed read a book on poker, I am confident in this, however many years down the line, that bluffing still exists. And not only does it exist, it's a pretty big part of the game. Because if it's just based on the cards, what the hell are you doing?
Sure.
So
didn't bother to pull up a holodeck simulation of a game or anything like that.
No.
We see them have holodeck recreations of all sorts of
Robin Hood.
Yeah, or real world, in air quotes, events from Star Trek history where they're just, you didn't bring up the Spersky Kasparov poker match equivalent.
Lord knows there are things he could have looked up that would have explained the concept of a bluff.
And I'm sure I got those names wrong.
Whatever. I didn't even pay attention to what you were saying. Here's where I'm at. A couple things. First off, I love how he calls it a game of chance. Poker is not necessarily a game of chance. In fact, a New York federal judge has actually ruled it's a game of skill. I will tell you, but I think it's both chance and skill. I think it's a little bit of both. There's certainly a level of chance to it. Anyone can win on any hand in the right situation. But generally speaking, someone with more skill is going to have a better chance of winning at the poker table.
Yeah, you can be dealt the best cards in the deck and still lose.
Correct. And it's certainly different than, say, a roulette machine, roulette or something else, where literally there's nothing you can necessarily do that makes your chance better or worse than another person. You are still you're putting your chips on the same dot as anyone else, and it's the same percentage. As compared to sitting down at a poker table, you will have a better chance if you know what you're doing, generally speaking. So, but that's not that. Sadly, that wasn't even on my list. That just made it after you played the clip. And yeah, the fact that he doesn't understand what bluffing is funny. I will also say, even if he understood bluffing, this was the worst kind of bluffing that's ever existed. So they're playing 5-card stud, the most boring game that doesn't even exist in poker rooms anymore, because they played limit, so not no limit, meaning you can only bet in increments of whatever, 5 or 10. I don't know if they never said like what it wasn't dollars or anything. Like, do you know what the heck it is?
In this series, there is no, this is a post-scarcity world. There is no currency.
Okay. They don't get paid.
There is no reason to have limit poker, period.
So again, I will refer to as betting units because I actually refer to that in my real life anyway. So they went by 5 to 10 betting units. So in a limit 5-card stud game, which might be the most boring poker game that's ever existed on the planet, which is great. That's how it starts off. And in fact, data is correct. There's a very limited amount of things. One thing you don't do is you get all the way to the river with that many chips in play and then fold to a 10 betting units when, and I'm going to tell you exactly where they were at. We know, just based on the cards that were face up, that Data has at least a pair of queens, at minimum. And Riker either 100% cannot be a pair of queens or has a flush. Those are the only two options. It does not matter what any other cards Data has. Because what is shown is that he's got at least a pair of queens. Now, he does not have anything better than a flush. So the question is binary. Does he have the flush or does he not have the flush? And unless you are above 95% certain that he has the flush, you call there. And let's be honest, I think an android would know to call there.
Sure.
So
most poker games that we play against computers right now would call there.
I think almost anyone calls there because you have gotten that far down the line, he would have called there. And so for them to have said it was intuition or whatever dumb thing they said is complete BS, step one. Now, we could also get into a bunch of other things, like the betting structure didn't make any sense. Data starts off the hand with a pair of queens and doesn't even raise, which if he had read any book, and in fact, he says at the start, when you have a good hand, you raise, is basically what he says, and he didn't do that. So there's that.
He knows about the slow play. He doesn't know about bluffing.
Right. He knows the slow play. He doesn't understand bluffing, which makes perfect sense. Could they find the cheaper set of cards and chips, for God's sakes? Like, it is the flimsiest plastic chips. Guys, I don't know much about Star Trek. I know this is Enterprise D. They've got to have something frickin' better in there than these plastic shit-ass chips.
You might not know this, Derrick, but they have matter replicators. You can literally walk over to a machine on the wall and say, give me the fanciest chips that are producible.
I have two sets of better ones behind me. What are we doing right now?
I think I have a better set of poker chips.
Right.
And I only play poker when I'm hanging out at Derrick's for poker.
Fair enough. Also, the most annoying thing that happens in this poker game happens in every freaking movie poker scene or TV poker scene I've seen, which is the string bet. It happens in every single one. I'll see your 5 and then raise your 5. That is an illegal bet in every single casino and every single home game that's ever existed. But yet, for some strange reason, every freaking show we watch, this includes Ocean's 11, this includes whatever, the Lincoln Lawyer scenes, there's always a string bet, and it irritates every poker player every single time, which is so annoying. There was also, my favorite was, I don't even know who O'Brien is, but I know it was O'Brien that says this, when he says, too rich for my blood. If I've done the math correctly, he bet 5 into a pot of 85. They raise him 5 more, and he says, too rich for my blood.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are betting,
need that line to be in there, Derrick. They just need someone to say that.
Those are the poker lines.
These are the lines.
You may not know this.
There
is a statute that requires, it's a California statute.
And
so the actor, Derrick, the actor who plays O'Brien, Colm Meaney, a wonderful character actor in a ton of stuff, holds the record for being in the most Star Trek episodes of anyone.
Oh, interesting. Fun.
Because he's been in so many shows.
Well, I get why.
He's in all of the... After Star Trek The Next Generation finished, and it overlapped with Deep Space Nine for 2 years, Colm Meaney went over and was on Deep Space Nine for the rest of its run, too. Then did some episodes.
I would like them to invite me, because I would run over every single one of these guys at the poker table, because it's pathetic. And very similarly, Data does the same thing. Data raises on the river. He bets on the river, gets raised, and then folds. Yeah. Which is, I think, the worst combination of things he could have done. If he had checked, then there's a bet, then he folds, at least then you're like, all right, he's given up on the hand, he's accepted he has a flush, it's fine. He bets, then gets raised, and it's, okay, you have to put 5 betting units in with the potential to win, I don't know, 130 or 140 at this point. Like, again, an android can do the math and realize that unless you are 100% certain that he's got what he thinks he has, you put the darn chips in. There are so many things wrong with that game in a 2-minute and 42-second game or whatever it is that I was like, I had to rewatch that 5 times to just check all the things that were wrong with it.
But it is worth noting a couple of things on this, Derrick, that have nothing to do with the law, but it's just fun. This
is all I'm adding. This is all I'm adding to this podcast is my poker pissed offness.
This is the first poker scene between all of them on the ship.
Okay.
It becomes a regular thing.
Fun.
This is a thing that the senior officers without Picard do. There are a few times where visiting guest stars join the poker game because they're on the ship or whatever. And frequently, one of the things that happens is Data then uses his android capabilities to shuffle the cards in ways that people are like, oh no, are we in trouble? He also gets better at bluffing. Like, this whole progression of Data as an entity, as a being, kicks off with this episode. Like, Data's growth started a little bit in the first season with Tasha Yar and the fact that he has sex with someone and learns what emotions are. But this is a big moment in his growth, and the poker game is actually used intentionally to show Data's growth at different points in time throughout the series, to the point where it comes back in some of the movies and everything that come up as well. And then when they end the entire Next Generation series, when the whole show is over, the very last episode is Picard walking into the senior staff poker game. And everyone stops and they're like, oh, do you need something? Is there an emergency? What's going on? And he says, no, I thought I'd just join in. And there is this very touching moment where he says, I should have done this a long time ago. And one of the crew responds, you were always welcome. Like, it was always here waiting for
I
you.
like that. Yeah. And by the way, I do like that when there is some, I'm not going to say trope because that's not the right word, but like some sort of scene where they all sit around. It's the Blue Bloods version of their Sunday dinner.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the off-duty scenes. Yeah.
Exactly. And I do like it. I do find it funny that Pulaski, who I have gotten the opinion that none of you like her, ends the scene with the game is 7 cards high-low with a buy-in on the last card. And just to make it interesting, the man with the axe takes all. Those all make sense.
Do they?
Unique of
I
their
don't
own thing.
understand what she just
So
said.
I can tell you what they all mean. 7 card high-low, that is certainly a game that is played. With a buy on the last card typically means you have to, if you're still in before the last card's dealt, you all have to put a predetermined amount in. Normally she would say what that is.
Forcing a bet.
So
at the end.
you're basically forcing a ante before the last card is played. So if you're already in, you then have to put more in. Now, the man with the axe takes all is very interesting. The man with the axe is the king of diamonds. If you look at a card, it is the only card in the deck that has an axe, and it's also known as the suicide king because it looks like it could come in and kill the king at any moment. Takes all is confusing. I have actually done significant research into this to figure out what takes all could mean because I didn't understand it. And the best understanding I can get is that if you have the king of diamonds and it's in play, you win the hand, and that's it. And that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Even if you got nothing.
Unclear.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate Joker. Now, by the way, since we hate Pulaski so much, that would be something she would play, from what I can tell. Now, I also find
She's already palmed the king into her hand, like she's already got it.
Now, I could also see a scenario where they start. So they're playing what is called a mixed game, which is like the dealer can call whatever game they want as it gets dealt around. That is something that happens at home games all the time. I have a feeling when Data said, when I was reading stuff and didn't understand, he was referring to the scenario where like they were calling out weird ass card games, and I didn't read about the man with the axe takes all.
He's like, I read the book on Texas Hold'em. What's going on?
I understand the standards. So honestly, to go back to the whole point of like Data saying I read everything on this and I don't understand it, honestly, that makes sense because of things like that. But generally speaking, it is the dumbest scene. It's not the dumbest poker scene, but it is close to the dumbest poker scene I've seen.
It's not great.
It gets, I will say, they get better, Derrick. Like the poker scenes get better.
I might just watch Star Trek: The Next Generation to watch the poker scenes and see if I have
I'm
thoughts on
sure someone
it.
has done a supercut of the poker scenes. Of Star Trek Next Generation.
There are multiple Reddit threads where they analyze every single poker scene. So yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Of course, it's the Star Trek audience. Of course there are.
Of course there are. Of course there are.
We've had a little digression about poker, which I'm sure gave the audience a nice break from the Star Trek talk.
Maybe that's actually what the sidebar is, the poker.
The opposite. Like maybe they don't want to hear poker and they want more about the Star
That
Trek.
could be.
If that's
We'll
the
get
case.
some feedback. We'll find out.
Either way, at some point over the last however many give or take hour, someone has gotten coffee because they got bored at something. The overlap of complete nerds with one thing and the other thing, probably it's not actually a Venn diagram that heavily overlaps, if I had to guess. The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa PLLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2026, all rights reserved.